Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. James Green and I would like to welcome to the show today Jon Bahl, CEO of Preparis. Jon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alex. Good to be here. Doing well, doing well. Excited to have a conversation about an important topic.
Awesome. Thank you, Jon. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Live just north of Atlanta, originally from Texas. So, as a typical Texan, always have to work that in no matter how many years I've now lived in Georgia. Here with my wife, Amber, our two kids. My daughter's 15, my son is 13. Um, when we're not working, it's all sports. My daughter's a gymnast, my son's into travel baseball, so we're running around a fair amount. Um, Had the privilege of joining Preparis a little over 5 years ago now. It's been a great journey, and really was drawn to the organization because the mission that it represented. I've been lucky enough over the last 4 or 5 software companies to be part of organizations that both bring tremendous value to our customers, but also do good in the communities around all of us. And I appreciate that opportunity to have, doing good while doing well coexist, and Preparis fit that. And it's been a really fun journey. We've got a really strong team here.
Well, let's take that a step further. Tell us a little bit more about Preparis. What does the company do? What do they offer their customers?
Yeah, so we're the leader in business continuity for the small to medium sized business. And when we scan the landscape 5 years ago, what we saw is an underserved segment of the market, which is kind of that small to medium sized business who has very similar challenges to larger enterprises. And we came up with a value proposition that resonated really well. And we've been really lucky on our journey to get it right initially, which is ease of use, which of course every software business has to say ease of use. But for us, when we were thinking about small part-time practitioners who are focused on ease of use and the need to be able to respond to a disruption when something happens, we really saw it as, critical, first step. The second thing we focused on was the power of the suite, right? A suite solution as we define business continuity, which for us was preparation, response, and communication to your employees at the time of disruption. And what was interesting, so we sort of came up with this in 2018, 2019. Gartner released something in the 21-22 timeframe where they said about 15% of organizations were buying the suite. And by 2025, 75% of organizations making a business continuity software decision would be buying a suite. So we were sort of on trend and we were happy with that. And then the third pillar for us was we wanted to be purpose built for very particular markets that we serve. And so for us today, that's financial services, professional services, insurance, and the public sector. And that way we could cater our software to the needs of our end users for the markets that they serve as an organization. And so we've really been focused in those areas. We've grown up through acquisition to some extent, although we've had really nice organic growth. We brought together what was the original Preparis, which was an alerting and notification software, Recovery Planner, which was at that time a leader in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for business continuity planning software, and then ultimately Bold Planning, which was the leader in emergency management and continuity of operations for the public sector. And so we brought those together, created a really, integrated platform that's allowing us to grow and continue to serve our customers in a really positive way.
That's really interesting. We've seen a lot of companies in the software space, particularly in our space, the last 5 years, 7 years, grow through acquisitions. And honestly, they haven't been successful or they've been very bumpy. We've seen a lot of companies where it's very disjointed. So I'd love to hear from you. How are you able to, like, what was the formula to bring those companies together into one?
Yep. I think it starts with being really deliberate with what our decision making was and have a primary reason for every one of the acquisitions that we did. I think the second pillar of it is we focus way more on cultural integration initially than anything else. And so we feel like if we bring the people together and we create a symbiotic organization, everybody's going to thrive. And if everybody's thriving, then the product will follow in a logical fashion. So we started with Preparis back in February of 2019. It was solely an alerting and notification platform. We built on top of that Preparis Planner, knowing that we wanted to have a business continuity planning tool that focused on those three pillars of ease of use and suite and purpose built. And we got it right. Within the first 45 days, 6 new customers joined us. Within the first 12 months, 100 new customers joined us. We knew our value proposition was resonating. At the same time, we wanted to be able to have a more comprehensive offering, which led us to Recovery Planner. Again, incredible credibility through Gartner and through the marketplace. And so that was a very strategic acquisition for us to be able to understand how could we layer on additional functionality that served our customers. And then we knew, because of the verticals that we wanted to serve, how do we go get into government? And so then we were very specific with that. And then we try to be thoughtful about the platforms. I mean, some of our customers still remain on those former platforms, and that's by design. It meets the needs of those customers. And so we've kept the investment up in them from a product perspective, from a customer support perspective, making sure that we're continuing to move those platforms forward, even with the evolution of the Preparis platform and the growth that that particular platform has seen as we've brought together all of that functionality across the other platforms. When I look at the broader market, because you're right, it's been really acquisitive. I think to some extent they've all made sense, but they've been very reflective of what we've seen in the market, right? You heard me allude to the fact that there's this idea of complexity wins in our sector. And we just haven't gone about it that way. So if you look at business continuity providers in the last few years, every one of them went to enterprise organizations who had increasing sophistication and increasing complexity. And so through acquisition, people haven't said, hey, I'm looking to simplify. They're going, oh, you want more and you want more and you want more. And so now what's happened is all the users are coming back and saying, actually, this has become too complex. We are seeing a shift in the market that we all exist in, which is there's more and more awareness. And as there's more and more awareness, stakeholders want to have access to it. So it's no longer that small department who gets to be the subject matter experts on a really complex, really sophisticated process. And so I think we've seen that through the acquisitions, that because of that, there's been some more choppiness than what we experienced, because we were always kind of like, no, we want to be simple. We want to be easy to use. And so that has served us well.
Yeah, and certainly there's a lot of organizations out there that if you're looking for a risk management software that does everything and takes 18 months to deploy, there's a lot of that out there right now. Absolutely.
There is.
Is that how you bring the people aspect into it? Because I noticed as you were talking, you mentioned bringing people into it and users coming back to you. Is that how you keep the success going, is focusing on the people, the users themselves, rather than what others say a tool should be?
Yeah, well, so I think first off, when I talk about people, a lot of times I'm thinking about our team first off, because we've got to invest in our team, but it all layers on. It's always the people. So last year, probably not different than any other software business. I mean, we did over 150 voice of customer interviews, right? To some extent, understanding what are their needs, what do they want out of a software, and how do we bring it to life. But you've got to be a translation layer, because if you go to any user, they're like one more thing and one more thing and one more thing. And if you do all of that, well, you have 100 more things, but they haven't necessarily rationalized how it serves the greater good of all of your customers. And so you end up with a really robust tool. The other part of it, though, for us is who are our clients, and we're true to that. So we're not talking to 100,000 employee organization and going, hey, this is what's best for a 15 employee organization. We might talk to 100,000 employee organization, but we're going to build something for them. But we're building something very different for our primary customers, which is small to medium-sized businesses that have different needs. But if you look at the regulatory environment, but have the same regulatory requirements of large organizations.
So when you work with those SMBs, how do you make them more resilient? Like, what does success look like for those clients?
Yeah. So from a resiliency perspective, I think it is how quickly do we get your business back up and running? And how well do we serve the safety of your employees? And so there's this stat I remember when I first came on board. So this is a 5-year-old stat, so who knows what it looks like today, but it's what kind of keeps me thinking about an organization. A small business that shuts its door for 5 days or more has a 95% chance of being out of business in 12 months. And so our responsibility is, do we have the right plan in place that has been tested and exercised in a way that helps your organization be thoughtful about how you recover the business so that you're back up and running, not just from a financial perspective, but from a brand reputation perspective, so that you stay in business for the long term. Because a small business faces different challenges than a large organization might. The conversation I just had today was a life safety event, right? Same thing. We know they're resilient if they're keeping their employees safe. So if there's an active shooter, what do we do in that moment that helps them be able to not just manage their response, but also communicate with their employees, make them safe? And so when we think about it, those are sort of the lenses, we look at our customers through.
You said something that caught my attention there, bringing things up in a thoughtful manner. Can you explain what you mean by that?
I missed the context that I said bring it up in a thoughtful manner. Look, I think everybody has to be measured in the way that they do this. And so to me, I think it's really just about, we're not just building plans to build plans to check the box, right? It's taking a step back. So let's take testing and exercising as a really good example of something that we see as a trend in business continuity today. What they are thinking about is, now that there's increasing awareness within the organization, they're getting more support to do testing and exercising than ever before. But it's not just to say, hey, in my annual audit, I did a test or an exercise. It's to help them think about, how do they train their team? How do they identify gaps? How do they create muscle memory should there be some type of disruption, right? And so when we think about thoughtful in the frame of testing and exercise, we're trying to educate people. It's not just about the annual audit. It's about all these other things that can serve your organization really well.
So for that small business owner, I often hear, so I have 50 to 100 employees, and they say, I don't have time. I don't have time for business continuity. I don't have time for resilience. What do you say? What do you say to someone like that?
Yeah, we're not hearing that nearly as much as we heard a handful of years ago. As you know, the awareness in our sector has never been higher. And so whether that's worldwide pandemic or the weather events that right now are record breaking on almost a daily basis, the threat of cybersecurity, there's just a higher level of awareness and the risk to the business in the C-suite, even in small business owners. And so what we're seeing is, they may feel that pressure, but that's where, going back to what our value proposition is, of this idea of ease of use and suite and a guided approach for the market that they're in, allows them to see that they're going to be able to do this faster. What we saw after we released Preparis is, we did a market survey of our existing customers, and they were saving 50% of their time compared to what their prior method was. Because these customers who don't have time, either robust, cumbersome tool that didn't meet their needs, and so it was difficult to navigate, or they were in some sort of static approach, a Word document, a SharePoint. And so by the time they get on something that was easy to use and met their needs, we were seeing really substantial time savings. And so we try to take them through that exercise to understand why that could be not time intensive, but actually time savings. And then we're going to spend the conversation saying, where do you want to spend that time, instead of on business continuity, because hopefully we'll free you up through our 1,000+ customers and their experiences.
Are there any trends that you're seeing in resilience that you want to communicate, or small business leaders should really be aware of right now?
Yeah, I think so look, there's a ton of trends. I mean, I wouldn't argue if anybody raised any, because I could probably say 10 to 15 trends. So I'll probably hit 3 and I hit one of them already, so I'll probably hit 2, but we are just seeing increasing testing and exercising at a pretty substantial level, whether that's tabletop testing and using some of our templates or using our software in safe mode to be able to really take a practice or an exercise through its paces. The one that I'll probably call out most importantly, and then I'll hit one other, is we did research last year, and what we found is there was a very different view from CEOs and resiliency professionals.
Mhm.
And so when we talk to resiliency professionals, 55% of the resiliency professionals that we talked to believe their organization was ready to respond to most events. And an additional 42% believe they were ready for some event. So in essence, 97% of resiliency professionals were saying, hey, we're in pretty good shape here. Meanwhile, 670 global CEOs were interviewed, and they had a much different view. And so they were interviewed on 15 very specific disruptions. None of those 15 disruptions rated higher than 49% of CEOs saying they were prepared. And in fact, in half of those examples, 80% of the CEOs were saying, no, our organization isn't prepared. And so it was a moment of reflection for me. Okay, here's what we're hearing from resiliency professionals, and yet we're hearing something very different from CEOs. And when we unpack the data, and this is just my opinion, I think there's a different definition of what preparedness means, right? And so resiliency professionals are saying we have the right processes, we have the right program in place. But CEOs are saying, okay, is there broad-based awareness of those processes and programs? Have we created a culture of preparedness? How have we integrated it into our organization and are recognizing that it actually takes everybody in the business for an organization to truly be resilient? And so we think there's this disconnect in the market today where C-level has become much more aware, which is great. But resiliency professionals are still sitting here saying, yep, program and processes are in place. And how do we make those things coexist where we take the programs and processes, make them scalable across the organization? And so I think we'll see in the next few years a real evolution of what that looks like. So that's kind of trend 2. So testing and exercising, kind of this idea of CEO awareness and resiliency professionals being aligned. And then I think the third one is just this move towards simplicity that I talked about. As I've harped on, one of our key tenets is making continuity, business continuity, simple and achievable for everyone, regardless of your organization size, regardless of who you are. And so we think, for lack of a better term, we got to break down some of kind of the old school obstacles that have existed in our sector and remove some of the barriers to entry for small to medium-sized businesses so they can protect their people, so they can meet the regulations that they need to, and help their businesses be better prepared. And so we think the old way of complex processes, lots of people, more expensive consulting engagements, and just naturally because of that, a slower process has to evolve. And so we think this is the disruption that's coming in our market. We all know with awareness comes more stakeholders involved. Stakeholders don't want more complexity. They want to figure out how can we have a voice in this, and to have a voice in, especially in software, the software has to be simple and easy to use because they're not going to be living in it every day. And so we see testing and exercising alignment of these individuals and this idea of simplicity really being where our resiliency sector goes in the coming years. But somebody could have said cyber or any of these other things, and AI, like if you can't say AI, like you're missing out. All would be true, but we think this is really, at the foundation of where we'll go.
I'm actually glad that you didn't say AI and cyber because
It's required, though.
I know it's by law we have to say AI and cyber every 10 minutes.
That's right.
But what you shared with us, I think, was much more meaningful to what organizations are facing today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we all know cyber's a threat. I think we all know AI is going to be an important evolution. So we as an organization have to think about it, but I'm not sure it's going to make it into the next 3 years of cyber will. But AI is not going to make it into the next 3 years of evolution. But if you're not working on it now, you're behind.
Jon, do you have any final thoughts to share?
I appreciate the opportunity to spend time with both of you. We think this is an exciting time in business continuity in the broader kind of GRC sector. There's a tremendous amount of awareness. There's a tremendous amount of desire to move from what has historically been more of a mandated process to much more of best practice. And I think not just that individual business, but the communities around all of us will be better for the adoption of business continuity and risk management as a core part of how we all do business in the coming years. And so I'm excited about it. I appreciate what you all are doing with interviews like this to continue to create that awareness, and look forward to continuing the conversation.
James, do you have any final questions for Jon?
No, that was great. Thanks for your time today, Jon.
I have one question for you. If people want to reach out to Preparis, how can they find you?
Easiest way to find us is at preparis.com. And through there, you can either request a demo, take a look at our information, connect with one of our account executives to learn more.
Wonderful. Well, thanks very much, Jon, for sharing your time and your ideas and thoughts with us today. We really appreciate that.
Thanks to both of you. Have a great day.
You too. And James, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Alex.
And everyone watching, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.